the soul, in the pineal gland that's watching everything and driving it, kind of, like, what is it? Oh shoot, what was the name of that movie?
Where they're fighting each other with the monster.
There was a movie recently, not too many years ago, I think, called. It's about a young man that plays games, and he is so good at it that he ends up winning the contest, and he ends up inheriting.
Ready Player One?
Ready Player One. Yeah, there you go. But in the battle scene, there's some of them that are inside like a little homunculus in like a not a real robot, but a program in the game that is acting like a huge fighter, thing. It seems, that kind of thing to me. But so this is part of Descartes' error, according to Damasio, right? We don't really have this. And in fact, if you follow this up, what often is depicted as this little man in the middle has a little man in his brain. Because where does it stop? It's kind of one of those dilemmas where, well, what's, driving him? What's driving, et cetera. So it seems ridiculous. Well, how could Descartes hold such views? I personally think that he was just saying stuff like that because he didn't want to get in trouble with the church, but that he probably didn't really believe in the soul. And he gave the soul such a little job to do, I mean, because mostly the machine, the body, does everything on its own, right? You only need, the little driver to like make certain decisions and so on. With Hobbes, you don't have this little homunculus. Instead, you just get kind of like a behaviorist view of the brain, that everything happens because of motions. By the way, when we get to the issue of free will, Thomas Hobbes believes you have free will as long as you're not restrained from doing what you want to do. But at the same time, everything that happens is determined by cause and effect. So you have free agency as long as you're like, if you want to get up from the chair, and you can, you have the free will to get up from the chair or not, right?
So freedom in the sense of physical freedom, but not in the sense of...
Right, there's no such thing for Hobbes. That's magic, basically. For Hobbes, everything is cause and effect. Thank you, Galileo, right? Everything is a mechanical cause and effect. And as a result, I'm reacting to things on my body because my body wants to be happy. It wants pleasure and avoids pain. So I'm constantly making my decisions. Do I want to do this or this based on what gives me more pleasure and less pain, right? Actually, that's a theory that goes way back. Epicurus thought that. There's Greek philosophers that thought that that's why we make the decisions, and what's our goal in life is to be happy, etc. But the point for Hobbes is that we are mechanical, and everything that happens is a result of cause and effect. But of course, we still have what he considers to be free will, because that's when we want to do something, and we can do it. That's where the freedom works for Hobbes. That's if you're talking about the different kinds of free will belief, he's considered a compatibilist. You're both determined and free at the same time, and there's no conflict, because in his view of our life, we're free to choose what we want to do, and yet, of course, at the same time, our bodies want us to do the things that the body basically wants to do in a particular situation. So if you're free, it's because you're not restrained by, somebody locking you up or not giving you enough money to do whatever, that kind of thing. So I'm comparing Hobbes and Descartes together because they are contemporaries. They do meet at least once. They also write letters to one another. For example, one of the more famous things that Descartes has written, he's the most famous line, and I guess everybody, you can tell me, if I go 1, 2, 3, everybody tell me what his most famous line is. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
I think, therefore I am.
Okay, thank you very much. We got one person that knows the most famous line. I think, therefore I am. How does he come about to come up with that line? First off, as I tried to point out, that St. Augustine has written this in his reply to the skeptics, which is kind of famous. And remember, I explained that St. Augustine argues to the skeptics that, how do you know you exist? He says, well, I know that I exist because if I didn't exist, who's asking the question, right? And second, I also know that I know, because I know that I know, and so I know that I know. And there's a third thing, I love knowing that I know. So in one paragraph, St. Augustine gives us that whole argument, right? In Descartes' book, The Meditations, he gives us 6 days worth of that argument. And he starts off by saying, how do I establish, my knowledge? How do I get a firm basis for my knowledge? And he starts off by saying, well, first off, I'm going to doubt everything that I can't prove for sure. And so he creates what's considered to be the demon, I forget, this, all-powerful demon, basically, idea, which, by the way, is compared by lots of people to the movie The Matrix. So if you remember the movie The Matrix, where, everybody thought that they were living a life, but it's actually just an illusion. They're all living in a vat of Jell-O of some sort, and a computer is basically giving them the interconnected, weaving life that they think they have. That's kind of like the demon for Descartes, as he thinks, what if a demon is fooling me into thinking that all this stuff is the way it appears to me, but it really isn't, just like in the movie. Well, he finally gets to the point where he says, the one thing the demon can't fool me about is that I exist, because if I doubt, I exist. I'm the one who's doubting, and so therefore I exist. And then, of course, it gets reformatted and becomes, I think, therefore I am. Now, in the book, The Meditations, he doesn't exactly have that quote. That quote is in a different book called The Method on Discourse, how to be a good scientist, basically, right? But in the Meditations, he does use this serial doubt to doubt everything, whether things are shaped the way they are, et cetera, and eventually you get to the point where the only thing you could do is at least be absolutely certain that you exist. And I'll stop there for today, and maybe we'll have a machine on Wednesday. I don't know. I already told them, who's them? Callie knows. But the university knows that everything's screwed up. But remember, the quiz question that I have for today's class is, who was influenced by Hobbes more? I'm sorry, who was influenced by Galileo more, Thomas Hobbes or René Descartes? They both obviously were, but it's just fun for you to look up and see what you think. And next class I have a question about a physician that most people aren't familiar with, but he ought to be more famous than he is. Questions for me? Sorry about the machines. Should I have stood up and did a better dance? Would that have been? I can dance. I know how to dance. Never took lessons, but
Self-taught.
So wouldn't that be talent?
that would be talent. That would be talent. Is that your battery?
That's not my battery. I found it on the floor.
Well, if you're a child, don't eat that.
There's another one so they can stick together.
Oh dear. Those are supposedly very dangerous. People swallow them. So don't swallow those.
Now I feel cold.